Heard.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's another episode of Julie Harris Presents. Today, we've been talking about these last few episodes of organizing something, getting something together to where we can actually unite people and help others. And the main focus being youth, people, at risk youth at that. I have a sister from another mister on here, Jesse.
Well, no, 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 dude. We have the same father, okay? He just never came back from
yeah, he
cigarettes.
went and made a cigarette run and he ain't come back. But
He just dipped.
yeah, she does a lot of work in the community and stuff with around the area and things. And I was talking to her, and I didn't even put two and two together. I was like, I want to be a part of something of an activist, be like part of helping, part of the solution, not the problem, because we had some violence happening lately, and then people rallied and stuff like that. Um, I saw the turnout; it was pretty decent. The
It
thing
was
is,
pretty decent, but it could have been better. Really quick, and I'm going to interject with that here. And this is where we really need to see the improvement. Is it could be better because somebody pointed out the same people that we're seeing at all of these rallies. Like we always see each other, we all know each other, and it's good because you want people who know what's going on to be involved, but like we're also very limited, right, on what we can do without more backing, truly.
and speaking of backing, what would you say? Like, you say, would you think that you need better resources?
Fuck yeah. Oh hell yeah.
Okay.
Easily. Because a lot of the resources, there's grants that get sent, right? People get grants or they get government assistance, and all these programs are kind of divvied up. And a lot of programs right now are just because you're going to start seeing a big inject into the community of resources like Narcan. We just got oxygen for overdoses to give to people, right? And all of these things are starting to come in right now because any of the grants back in December to January that were turned in are now starting to see fruition and have actual tangible money. So yeah, definitely more resources.
Okay. Resource wise, would you think the area, the community affects your resources?
Absolutely. People really talk about Washtenaw County being resource rich, and it is because compared to outlying and surrounding counties, they actually have a pretty wealthy population, right? You've got Ann Arbor, you got Barton Hills, especially, but also those resources do not do anywhere near enough. You and I talked about this previously. There's what's called a housing first module, which is basically the belief that it. All right, so quick harm reduction intro to people who don't know what harm reduction is. Harm reduction is the concept that people are going to do drugs. We can't stop them. Humanity has literally been longing and looking to get fucked up since they figured out that they could ferment some honey and make beer, basically, right? And we can't stop that. But what we can do is make sure people have access to, again, the resources, and that's going to be, and whether people agree with it or not, I can't even tell you how many kits I go through a week of safer use kits, safer injecting kits, safer smoking kits. And without people having access to these, you're literally talking about seeing people die because they are injecting with the same needles over and over again, right? And this all ends up tying back into this big, gigantic circle where resources are essentially the problem because people who aren't really traumatized usually don't have drug problems. And we found that like people are like, oh no, speaking of the gateway drug, I'm smoking it right now. I'm smoking weed right now, right? But like it's not the gateway drug. It's trauma that's inherently the gateway drug, right? And then people go out and they're traumatized and they don't have access to mental health resources. And then they end up having all this stuff build up on them, and your depression just kind of compounds. And then they finally start getting help, but then they're like so overwhelmed because in order to even get help, you have to fill out dozens of packets of paperwork, right? And then if you don't have insurance, that becomes infinitely more challenging. If you don't have good insurance, it becomes infinitely more challenging. And then what a lot of people fail to recognize is we are all a much bigger step closer to being homeless than we are billionaires going down and imploding somewhere, it takes,
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, no. So like, the housing first module is basically the belief that people who you can't expect people to do anything in life unless their basic needs are met. And you know, you have a parent, right? That you got a mom or a dad that has a substance use disorder, and they were put through hell when they were younger and had kids too young, and it becomes this big cycle. So now they're homeless, they're out in Ann Arbor, they're driving around in their car, maybe, right? They start calling programs trying to get what we call a hotel voucher. And that's basically you get into a hotel and they try to find you more stable housing, right? The problem is a lot of these hotel vouchers were purchased during the pandemic when they were cheaper to buy, number one. Number two, a lot of hotels don't have to honor them. Number three, they should have put more into actual affordable housing than hotel vouchers. But I could keep going with that. But then you have like this whole cycle, right? Of then now you have these other kids coming into this traumatized life. They're being traumatized by the traumas that their parents are undergoing. And none of those problems can be solved until they have stability. And you can't build off a weak, shaky foundation. We all know this. You can start building, and what's the big thing they always tell you at church is the cornerstone of your foundation is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that cornerstone, nothing else is gonna matter, right? Like, and I can tell you, I participated in hotel voucher programs before. They're a lot, and they do a lot of good, but like a lot of the time you see it as like something that just happens during the winter just to get people warm, so it's sad because it just bounces in a variety of ways that it really shouldn't, right? Like, you can't get resources across county lines. So let's say I got somebody from Genesee County out by Flint that comes out to like, Detroit or Ann Arbor, and then they want to go somewhere else and they want to continue getting resources. You kind of can't. You have to stay within your home county. But then what's your home county if you're homeless? Do you have a mailing address? Can you get an ID?
And then
No,
that's a whole other can of worms that makes it
it
like,
is.
and and my thought process is, what do we do? What could we do to actually make things better?
So, we could, number one, I mean, dude, universal health care. My I have siblings like that we have, same dad, different mom, right? And their
Uh,
mom died because she was a diabetic, type 1 insulin dependent diabetic. She got a urinary tract infection, could not afford to go to the hospital and get antibiotics. And within 3 days, she was septic because her kidneys were already junk. And that's not a reason, that's not a good enough reason to let anybody die in America or any other country. Antibiotics are so widely accessible that we actually just start pulling back on the prescription of them because all these upper class people were taking them every time they had a cold or the flu, right? And again, another area of privilege, right? That you can take antibiotics so much that you start to create antibiotic resistant bacteria.
and
I mean, it's a fact.
that can be passed on to people too, though.
Absolutely. Animals, you can get urinary, you get types of bacteria and stuff from animals. And it's one of those things where like if you get something that was like sick, they give them a bunch of antibiotics, right? They're pumped up full of antibiotics, and then you get sick. And this actually, again, this one happened to me personally recently, where I actually had to get IV antibiotics because I got sick with something. And like I get up to the hospital, they run a panel, and they're like, dude, wait a minute, you've already been on antibiotics? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, shit. Okay. So I ended up doing a 10-day run of Keflex. And I had to get IV antibiotics at the hospital because we have a higher level of antibiotic resistance. And I don't take antibiotics like that. I make it a point not to, actually.
Yeah. So yeah. So that just concurs with what I was saying. Like, I mean, it affects other people too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
it's a
Like
trip.
these upper parents, there's a whole group of parents right now that have the privilege of not seeing their kids die from like the measles, mumps, rubella, other vaccines. And now we literally eradicated measles in the fucking United States of America, and they brought it back because they wanted to be so anti-vaccine. And there's a lot of good reasons to be anti-newer vaccines, right? But like the science is still it's supportive. Like we know that we save more lives by giving kids MMR vaccines when they're young. I mean, these days kids aren't even getting chicken pox anymore like we used to.
I
They
had
don't even get chicken
I,
pox.
I brought that up on the episode. Like, we used to have chicken pox parties. Like, when growing up, like, go over there with them so you go ahead and get chicken pox so you don't get it out your system.
Mm-hmm. But now we
Now,
also know that you can do pretty extensive damage to somebody by getting them chicken pox if they aren't prepared for it, right? Like, so we learn more science moving forward every year. And now these kids just get vaccines and you don't ever see chicken pox on them, which
yeah,
also means that they don't end up getting what is that stuff called where it's like the burning stuff? You get shingles.
yeah,
You don't get shingles. So what you could do to get more involved is every area will have nonprofit organizations that you can look into. Okay, and I'm going to warn you, if it's going to be something that you want to do with youth involvement, if you do have any type of record, you're going to want to go for a group that kind of specializes with like a felon one-on-one program, right? Where like you get somebody who's coming out, they're still on paper or they're off papers at this point. I'm sorry, they can't be on paper and engaging in this, but they're off paper, and they're literally talking to younger inner city youth. What we're seeing a lot of right now in our area is um, shootings that are um, I don't want to say gang related because I feel like that's a little too strong for what I think this is currently. And one of the things, like one of the reasons I'm not sharing my phase for those who might not know, is I do a lot of boots on the ground stuff. So I prefer to be able to be sneaky and sneak up on people when I am able to like go into a program and make sure that they're not treating people poorly. So people don't usually know my face. But I definitely do a lot of Zooms like this. And we have a program out here where it's one-on-one, right? So it's literally felons who've been there, they've done that, they've done their time, right? And they're going talking to these kids. They're like, did you know what the solution is not? What you guys are out here doing currently, which is getting pissed off at one another. And before anybody can even start their own fist, you guys are shooting at each other. There was a school bus at one of the districts out here. They were dropping kids off, and a bullet went through the front window of the bus. There were
man,
still kids on the bus.
man.
Yep.
And
So we need people who are willing to speak and be like, dude, you know what? I've been there, I've done that. And that's not what you think at all. It is at all.
yeah, because I mean, the general person that has something to say, which went per se the right route or whatever, doesn't have that background. It's harder for them to reach people with like kids that's on their way to actually being part of that.
Absolutely.
Because I can talk
Absolutely.
till I turn purple just because I don't have a felony. My word is not valid.
That's what I mean. See, the thing is though, is like, okay, there's a group of people, and I don't even say that, like, you know what it is that they grew up in such different circumstances that they can't imagine what it would take for somebody to get to that. And you know what, dude, that's not a bad thing. It's not. We want a society where people grow up so good that they're like, how can people be bad? That's not a bad thing. But it's a bad thing when it's very racially proportioned, which we know it is.
Speak on it.
And huh?
I said,
Oh
speak
yeah,
on
big
it.
facts. Yeah, no, big facts. We know it is. I mean, we know inherently that people of color are going to have more interactions with police, that they actually have set it up to a degree where it would happen. Um, our system, and you and I literally were just talking about this. Systemic racism is not saying, even it's saying that even if there were zero racists anywhere in your whole fucking system, inherently your system will be racist against people of color because that's how the system is designed. It's not saying, you know, it's a bad thing for you to have privilege. It's actually a good thing to have privilege if you're leveraging your privilege to help the underprivileged, right? Like,
Absolutely. It's like Robin Hood.
yep. And we don't see enough of that. And we don't see enough of people being like, you know what, dude, and this is one of the big things that gets me for harm reduction. And I have to be careful is I'll get out there, I'll start giving my spiel like, dude, I've been there, I've done that, I sold shit, I got rid of shit. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's a prosecutor right behind me. I shouldn't talk like that, you know?
Yeah.
But like they also get it because they've worked with me long enough to know that the people that I deal with aren't even probably here anymore. I mean, I'm one of the OGs from the opioid epidemic starting back in early 2000s. So,
Yeah,
um,
it reached the point to where it became like I would say the crack. It hit the forefront like crack.
yeah, no, it did. But the reason it hit the forefront was because it was affecting upper middle class white families. And that's why it hit as hard as it did, and it got as big as it did, and it got as much awareness as it did.
Attention, absolutely.
Yes. Yep. And then we find out that it's actually kind of piloted to a degree, like they pumped crack and cocaine into the Black communities, where they were like, oh yeah, go ahead, give all those hillbillies down there some more oxys and just keep shipping them. They knew, the pharmaceutical companies very much knew what they were doing, but don't get me going down that road. So the one big thing that I think is very notable that people have to understand is there's a lot of people like me that, I mean, dude, we're the reason that like our friends are still alive and they're with us because we acted, we had to figure out how to act, we had to figure out what to do to even bring somebody back from an overdose before Narcan was readily available. And then they came out and tried to charge you for Narcan and charge a bunch of money for it for a problem that they literally created.
And then they actually gave
Beautiful.
certain people access to it beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And another thing
Yep. Yep.
I wanted to discuss, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were
No,
active in administering and giving Narcan.
I am very much so. This past week, we gave out roughly 100 kits with Narcan in them. So far, my personal tally for the year is, hang on, I just had one last week, so I had to adjust mentally. I want to say 38 overdoses and reversals, and I had to actually do CPR on probably like 10, 12. I would have to actually like look down at my numbers, but yeah.
I knew it was serious. One time you had picked me up. You were done in the city. You were doing administering and stuff, and you had a fucking pistol. I mean, it was legit and everything, but I'm like, is that like, no,
Yeah.
sister doesn't have that. What are you doing with
Yeah.
that?
Sister ain't going out to the city without having the Ruger. Come on now.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, and you're trained and licensed to have it, which I'm
Yep.
safe with that. But it just threw me off because you didn't say anything. I'm just like, okay.
Come on, bro. How we grew up, you don't advertise that.
No, you don't.
You don't. It's like driving in the hood with your speakers up.
And I did
Trying.
that, and guess what happened?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I didn't have
You
speakers.
learned.
Yeah, I learned.
You
I
learned
learned.
a lesson, didn't you?
Yeah, I learned.
That trunk wasn't rattling anymore.
Nope. But yeah, man. And then like I was saying, like I want to get involved in the community and do certain things, and I actually want to get into the brain of people that actually do that. Because
Yep.
for me, when duty calls for that. Y'all drop at the drop of a hat, y'all there. You know what I'm saying? Support.
Hmm.
You know, trying to reach people. Me, I'm always doing something at the same time, and I don't want to come across as a person like just there conveniently to just be convenient. You know, to
Well,
say I.
also, but really quick interjection here. I'm going to check you on a level of privilege that you don't recognize that you have right there. You actually have the privilege to step back from these incidents and not be directly involved in them because they don't directly affect you.
Well,
It's not a
it
bad
does.
privilege to have,
It
but it
does.
affects you, but it doesn't to a point like where it would affect me, right? Like, and again, not a bad thing. I'm just drawing a comparison because like people think that they can go back and they can rest on this, and I think that's probably one of the biggest frustrations for me sometimes. It's like, dude, the shit that like these people have happening to them, they don't get to rest. They get to deal with it every single day, 24/7. It stares them in their face. They're not getting any rest, dude. Not a bit, not at all.
Okay. Well, my thing is though, I don't want to be the guilty type. Seeing something happen, knowing in particular I could actually help the situation.
That's how I've been in that spot way too often, and that's not a good spot to be in. um, I don't want anybody in that spot. Because there's been spots where I ran into overdoses, and we had to divide our attention, and you get left with did I just give that person brain damage, right? And you know that it would have been worse without you there, type deal. Totally know that. But then
Yeah.
also you bring on your own burdens to it, and it is selfish in a way. I'm not even gonna bullshit. It's selfish to make that about me. It is, but like also it's part of like how we carry ourselves, right? So like when we had the most recent shootings out here, that thing that you drove by looked, I mean, that was a concentration of three different local organizations working together to put that up. And then one of the main organizers is very well known in our area for how they coordinate and handle that kind of stuff. And is amazing. I admire the hell out of that person actually. And we were able to, and I'm not gonna lie, this is disheartening. So we hand out all this Narcan. We have all these great like community healing things. People come and talk. Everybody's making connections. I have 2 meetings coming up next week from it, and we leave, and then all of a sudden we hear that someone else has been shot. And it was that same night. I mean, I kid you not, like in our group chat, we're like, dude, it's literally there are 30 police cars on their way over to these apartment complexes because there was another young man shot. Turns out that the young man that was shot is actually known to somebody that I do work with, right? So I've been kind of hanging out with that person a little bit more, making sure that they're good. But I mean, we're talking very immediate family, close to them, and um my connection in the community is to the point where like the 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 ones that were shot, so what we threw that together was there was 4 young men that were shot, and they tried to get in their car and drive up to the hospital, and they got into a car accident right around the corner. 2 of them ultimately did end up succumbing to their injuries. Last I know, one was still critical but stable. The other one was they were talking about potentially releasing them soon. I don't know how far out of scope I am with that right now, but so we're out and we're like, dude, you know, we as a community, we got to come together, we got to stop this. And it's like you leave from that event and you know, anybody who's a parent knows that you go to that kind of event and you go like with that feeling in your gut, right? Because then I always feel kind of selfish and guilty bringing like going there as a parent, and I'm like, man, I got to go help this parent mourn their kid, and mine's still here, right? And I got to
Yeah.
look at this person, I got to lie to them, and I got to tell them I know what you're going through, and that's it's the biggest lie in the world. We don't know what they're going through. We can empathize, right? And we can try to understand, but I mean, none of us have had to bury our kids like that you know that I'm aware of in this group. So if I'm wrong, then I apologize, but then to anybody who has, I'm really sorry, because that's not something you should ever have to do in your entire life. I can't imagine, and I won't even insult anybody and tell them I can imagine, but you know, you're out and you're doing this, and you're also doing it because you've got family in the community, you've got roots in the community. This is your place, right? And to put all that concentrated effort in and then just go straight back. And even before I am back home, it's, oh, dude, our chat's blowing up because there's a shooting. And then I ended up getting 3 people out of the area that night because they did not feel safe. So it's the level of work that I do, I don't encourage anybody to do because I have a lot of connections that enables me to do it. Don't just please go get your friends out of a situation like that. There's better ways to go about it. And I do need to say that because I have a lot of training that allows me to handle crisis well. I know a lot of police officers, a lot of sheriff's officers. I've literally had somebody handcuffed before me. Cops are telling me to go get their shoes, and I still ended up talking them out of going to jail that night and getting any sort of ticket or anything.
All right. Well, I
So
mean, I will say this though, not to get off subject, but you do have the gift of gab. I will say that.
I
Um,
can talk anybody out of anything. That officer probably was like, dude, just take her so you'll shut the hell up. That's
hey,
fair.
but also though, I give you kudos though because at my time of need and everything, it's very rare that you find somebody like you. Um, we were in Benton
Mm.
Harbor for a sad occasion, but we were in Benton Harbor. We maneuvered,
Hmm.
got in and
Yep,
got out. But my thing is though, you understood,
I did.
and
I
and,
did.
and that's rare because I mean, looking at you, I'm not even gonna lie, people would not know your background.
No, no, and I won't even bullshit because I know you guys can't see me. Blonde hair, nice butt. Like I had a black lady the other day tell me she was jealous of my butt, and I was like, honey, I think that's the best compliment I think I could ever receive in my life, honey. Thank you. My life needed that ego boost, right? And I I grew up on the east side of Detroit and the 90s when it was very, very ugly. Um, what we have happening out here is absolutely nothing compared to what I grew up in, and probably compared to what you grew up in either out in Benton Harbor. I mean, that was during the riots and shit. So,
Yeah, I was removed at that point. I had to go back once again for a tragedy at that
mhm.
point. But to see something, well, I put it like this: I get off work all day, get home. Of course, you're gonna CNN. That's just the channel that they stayed on, CNN.
Mhm.
And you see the words Benton Harbor riots on there going on the ticker tape. Like you like what?
The fuck? Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
And then to know the people that were involved in it and things like that, that threw you through another loop.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at 24/7, I'm watching.
Mhm.
Not too long after that, I have to actually go and be there and talk about. Okay, I had a culture shock leaving there, then I had another culture shock going back.
I believe that. I do. And honestly, I'm level with you. That's so redlining, big thing back in the day, right? We're still seeing the effects of it. It's still illegal as shit. But like that's what we see when we see the types of segregation that we see between like inner city suburbs, right? And it's kind of meant to be a culture shock a little bit, right? Because like um most people don't even go half as far as you did to come here from Benton Harbor, right? Like most of the people that you knew that you grew up with out in Benton Harbor, they're still there. They haven't even come as far as Lansing, probably, let alone Detroit, or they haven't made it down to Chicago. And there's a lot of reasons for that that I could gab on, but at the end of the day, it's a fact.
Let's actually talk about it because I don't even understand or even know the depth of the truth of what you just said. A lot of
Okay,
people don't
so
venture too far.
that's true. That's true. Okay. So redlining was a concept that was brought up to um deny people of color loans and deny people of color access to good educations. Um, and that's where you start seeing a lot of like school districts really deteriorate, right? So when you have multi generations who have been redlined and who have been kind of pushed back into an area that they can't get out of easily. And they can't get out of it easily because circumstances are so stacked against them that getting out of it is really just not possible. Most people that grow up in Detroit will never go farther from 50 miles from Detroit in their life. I mean, if they travel and they go on vacation, you're very well looked upon, right? When you're out in the hood and you actually can afford to go on vacations, the fuck. Or if your or if your mom had a nice little china cabinet, right, and it just had a bunch of nice little trinkets and stuff, you remember going into that house and being like, "Oh, damn, I see them. They're hooked up over here a little bit, right?" So people, if they're not used to luxury and they're not used to traveling and getting out, then it doesn't even occur to them to dream that they could do it, right? In a sense. And if you really want to talk about how deep systemic racism goes in our country, I mean, honestly, take a look at, there's a thing called gerrymandering that just went before the Supreme Court that in its own way has to do with redlining of how certain voting districts were being drawn up, and they were doing it in ways where I believe Alabama or Georgia were the states, probably Alabama, but one day we'll say about Georgia's a very good example. You can only go register at a handful of places in Georgia, and then they're usually a good hour drive. So let's say you live in Atlanta, high concentration of multicultural melting pot people of color. All right. Basically, what they're saying in Georgia right now is Atlanta carried that last election, and Trump would not have lost Georgia if the lines had been drawn correctly. And they've been, if you look into Michigan gerrymandering, that's been a big problem recently as well here. So what you're seeing is people basically taking these old lines and going back and drawing them in again in a way that is politically going to benefit them, right? Um, and in doing so, they're holding back a slew of resources that could be going to these other communities, or like actual good ways for people to vote and express their opinions, right? Like and have their voice heard within our democracy. So all of these things are very tied up into your address. Again, we kind of circle back a little bit to housing first. You can't do any of these things in life that are kind of like your constitutional, like this is our obligation as Americans, man, is to go vote and be informed voters, right? Or else we get Trump. So yeah, I mean it's for me, it's one of those things where if you really want to deny people power and you really want to deny people the opportunity to grow, then you take their voice away, you isolate your mark, you take their voice away, and you keep screaming until your voice is the only one being heard. And that's really what we're kind of seeing successfully happen more and more with gerrymandering and in other ways of how education is going down. Right? There's a lot wrong with our system that makes it so you can't get out of that 50-mile mark, dude. There's so much. I mean, that would probably be another episode or two, bro.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Roy, you want to chime in?
I'm just sitting back taking it all in. She giving me a whole different understanding of everything. So, I'm just sitting back taking it in.
Yeah, and look, this is just over the podcast. I go through this for real life. That's why I feel like an idiot now, because I'm like, damn, I didn't even think about this before. Knowing this is like a jack of all trades, an expert at everything, literally. I go to them for everything, literally, things like that, like how to do this, how to do that, the community, and outreach, compassion towards people. You know what I'm saying? Like we have those type of deep conversations to where, how the hell did we even get here? I gotta ask you that. How did we get to this damn point?
I found chicken. Wow, wow. It's
Yeah,
potatoes.
yeah, okay.
It's potatoes.
Gotcha.
I don't know. How the fuck, how I should ask you that, motherfucker. Okay.
Yeah, well, we've been pretty much inseparable as far as ideology and things like that. She gives me a different understanding of things too. So I mean, like, imagine in detail, like this is the clean cut version. So
Yeah,
the,
yeah, that's fair.
the nitty gritty of the realness. That's like they'll give it to you all day.
All the way down to the ends of my ADHD, man. Don't worry. Be happy. But like one thing I will say also that I feel is very important to know really quick about me is I was actually raised in a very racist family. And I remember growing up on the east side and thinking like, why are my brothers telling the dogs to get the melon heads, right? Who's got a melon head going on? What are you even talking about? And I didn't know, and it wasn't until I got to a point with life where I could separate that and I could educate myself. And I realized that like I didn't want to hate people like that. I didn't want to hate myself like that. That was just too big, like, and ever since then my life motto has always been if people can hate other people indiscriminately, then I can love other people indiscriminately and they can't fucking stop me.
Wow. That's a good way to look at it though too. I mean,
Yeah.
love has no color or boundaries. And I think we live in proof of that though. You know what I'm saying?
No, big facts, big facts. My other brother from another father mother situation, I don't know, just sent me a video of their kid the other day, and they're like, oh, it's TT Jesse, it's TT Jesse. And here is, I'm gonna say this was a big redemption for me because that brother, his kids were born the same day that my oldest brother died. And he was literally the most racist of all of my siblings. So that was the universe listening towards balance, right? Like, I mean, because he actually had a multiple birth. It wasn't just one, there was multiple. And um, if I had to lose, because here's the thing that really sucks is like, that they're racist, crappy people. Still your brother. You still love them. You can't help it. You don't have to like who they are. You don't even have to align with who they are, understand who they are, but that's still my big brother that used to push me on the swings, and I still love him. So if I had to have that, like, that's literally best case life scenario for me is the brother of my heart brings, beautiful kids into this world that day.
Yeah, and then I gotta remember go short eats potatoes though.
Yeah, it is. Oh no, I know. Trust, I know. We weren't letting you out in the Benton Harbor by yourself. Come on.
Yeah. And I know you're strapped, but I'm not gonna get into it.
Well, no, because kids were with us. We had the kids with us. I wouldn't. it was still with me, but it wasn't on me.
Yeah, the episode, like this episode, I wanted more people to be here to actually indulge and exchange conversation, because it gets to the point to where I just listen and soak up things and absorb things, and I knew, which I don't know. I've been having brain farts lately to be like, I should have been said something.
Well, you're also fucking way overdoing it, and that's another conversation. Because if I have to come up in there with my whole ass paramedic bag and yell at you to sit down again, I will.
Oh, you're gonna bring that up? All right.
I will. I'll do it.
Hey, look, bro,
I'm gonna very vaguely bring it up, and I'm just gonna do so as a warning.
I'm gonna explain what happened.
He was overworking himself. It was too hot. He came in and out of the walk-in freezer, in and out of walk-in refrigerator, and about passed out because he was so dehydrated.
Once that cold air hit me, it fucked me up.
Mm-hmm.
I was out of it. Yeah, I was overdoing it, but I know my boundaries and my limits and stuff now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's funny that he said the same thing. He said that he thinks that like I'm like doing a lot and everything, but I have my boundaries and stuff of what I will and won't do. I know that hydrating is proper, eating right is proper, and also rest is proper.
Okay, I know those things too. Do you know how often I actually do them? And I'm a mental health professional.
Yeah. And you just go like a fucking Navy.
Bro, I was joking with one of my friends the other day. I was like, I just realized this whole weekend full moon. Bless you. I just realized this whole weekend was a full moon. I don't know why I went into it thinking I'd be able to take Saturday off at all. And then I was like, dude, I feel like at least, and you're gonna have to cut this one. I'm gonna let you know right now, you have to cut this one, but at least if I have to go on a sleepless binge like that, can I at least be partying and doing some or something? I don't know, like something fun and not dealing with crisis response after crisis response. I love my job. I do, because
it turns you a certain way though.
It does. And once I get into that crisis headspace, man, then I got you over here like, you sure you all right? Yeah, dude, I don't know. You seem real tired and out of it. And I'm like, because I haven't barely slept in a week.
Man, you sounded like it was some gauze wrapped around your whole damn head. I was like, you need to get some rest. That was your quality time, though. It shouldn't be like that, though. You know what I'm saying?
It shouldn't be, but if we also had the resources to where, so what happened to keep me from getting my quality time is I had a participant who was very recently a minor decide that they were going to walk from Detroit to Ypsilanti. And
how many hours were they in though?
How
many hours were they in?
3.5.
Yeah, that's crazy.
3.5, almost 4. They stopped for a minute because it was raining. But yeah, no, it's nuts, man. I couldn't reconcile with it. I really could. That was like, I don't even know.
And another thing, though, I mean, just since we're speaking on it, you helped all you could, literally, to it affected you.
Yeah. And that's what happens to every single one of us who work in mental health or this profession, is we don't have the resources, so we burn ourselves out because we're frantic trying to do something. I mean, this is a kid that's got developmental disabilities, has a significant amount of trauma of their own growing up in Detroit, and they being in and out of the system, and
yeah, but I'm gonna interject on this one though. You can't help nobody if you can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. I know. I told you that, and I tell myself that all the time, and then I lie to myself, and I go right back out.
Right. So I'm gonna listen to you. I'm not gonna do what you do. I'm gonna do what you say. Because I see.
Okay. Well, wait. Hold up. Because now you're gonna say that chicken is important as a life, and it's not.
No. I'm saying your advice.
Yeah. No. You should. But I'm saying, like, my advice applies different, and I'm not trying to take away from anything that you do.
Oh no, absolutely.
But your job and my job have very different requirements, right? Like, I'm on call. I have to respond to some of these. Now, do I let myself get a little hung up?
Are ridiculous. The hours you were on call.
I'm not on call like that anymore because I'm not working at that one nonprofit anymore.
But
No.
what I'm saying is, I mean, you're absolutely correct. Our total paths are different, but when you overexert yourself, you're overexerted.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big facts. Big facts. And then it takes you probably another if I let myself burn out that badly, I will it might take me a good week to get like back. So our busiest time of year for harm reduction is actually from like the last week in November until usually the second week of January to the second week of February, because it really depends on the year. But that's when people are going through the holidays without family, they have substance use disorder, they they're using more. I had a whole
Holidays are
scenario
a bad
where,
time. I'll say that for
yeah,
myself.
they're a bad time for a lot of people for a lot of ways. And um I by the time that I finally took a break, I literally had to go out to the other side of the state and turn myself away for like a week. But we also had a big thing happening out here where I probably needed to go out there for a little bit just to make sure I was good.
Yeah, and I want to say kudos to the people that work for me that you have a hand in.
Oh yeah, no, they're amazing. All
Yeah,
of
they
them.
are.
They're great.
One person I didn't hire, but they are absolutely intelligent, a walking brain.
We'll talk
Josiah.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need you to go back and remove that though.
Say
You're
what?
gonna have to edit, you're gonna have to edit the names out because they're ex participants
Yeah,
of
my
mine.
bad, but
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
make it a point to where they don't watch it either.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they can't watch it. I'm not naming names, so that's kind of like my safety point, right? And I'm always very vague about
And
they, them.
yeah, and we did talk about this too, so I do apologize.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like talking about work or anything like that. So I mean, shame on me, but I'm gonna keep it moving just to not dwell on it. My mistake.
fair.
But yeah, it's always great to actually be involved with great people. The people that usually on my panel, I know from around. I don't deal with like many outsiders, and I found though once I got into a mind space, into a certain type of dynamic of how I deal with people and what type of people I deal with, my
Mhm.
actions change. What I do change. My habits change. The way I
Yeah.
think changes.
One thing I always encourage people to think about is when you hear someone talking about certain types of public policy, right? If you look around and like we're talking about, because it's a hot button right now, we'll talk about reproductive rights or, like affirmative action. You see a bunch of white dudes in that room, I would start questioning whatever decisions they're making because they have nobody accurately representing the groups of people that these are going to affect. So that's
You
number
are
one.
correct. You are correct.
That's number one. Number two is um hang on, my phone's getting ready. There it is. Okay. Do, do, do.
Hey, Roy, you there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. She's literally like a walking information, like constantly going 365, like. And I didn't think about this before, though. I didn't even put two and two together when I was talking about like what could I do to help, to actually help and actually understand, have knowledge of something, to get something rolling for myself. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I did not think about like, dang, hit them up, because anytime I need anything, they're there to actually help me, point me in the right direction and stuff. Like resources wise, they rich. They can point you in any direction, anything you want to even get.
Because what I like about what she's bringing to the table and saying is everything she's saying is geared towards a lot of young guys coming out of prison, a lot of guys in the streets. A lot of people in the streets have no clue of how to touch these resources that she's talking about. They back themselves in a corner from circumstances.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking about. We was having a conversation, just normal conversations. Hey, you back? Oh, she muted now, but yeah, we was having a conversation. I was like, damn, I didn't think about that because she got to breaking down stuff, this, that. Because, I mean, what I plan on doing is I'll be sitting in on city council
there it is.
meetings
Okay.
and stuff
The
like
other thing
that.
I always recommend that they do is I want them to ask themselves, am I just speaking or am I doing, right? So like, if you're like, oh yeah, man, that park's junk, it's garbage, you know, they need to clean it up. Did you pick up any of that trash while you were complaining about it? Or did you just complain about it? And if you put those kinds of like thoughts and actions behind yourself, right, you start noticing how much you move differently. And I think that's a really big important step for people to get involved. Another really important step that I think to get involved is your local politicians are always going to be your biggest impact, right? Half the time when people go in to vote, dude, they don't even know who they're voting for on their school board. And I don't know about you, but I think my vote counts a lot more for making sure that the superintendent of my kid's school is going to be somebody who is academically enriching the school district. They're not trying to take away stuff from the teachers. You know, there's so much that goes into what a superintendent needs to do. I need to make sure that whoever's going to be the superintendent of my kid's school is adequate to do that job, and that's my responsibility, right? So I really ask people to like look at that, look at their local grassroots, boots on the ground organizations always need help. And you can find yourself in a lot. And you know, here's the other thing too. A lot of people fail to realize the impact that volunteering can actually have on your career. I just met our local prosecuting attorney again, and I helped campaign for him, but he was like, oh, that's right. I kind of forgot about you because I haven't seen you in a while. Totally fair, right? Totally fair. So now I just got reintroduced to him. I have a meeting with somebody who actually does the whole felon one-on-one thing with youth coming up. There's a lot of really good networking that you can do for yourself while you're out there doing good for other people and still doing good stuff for yourself, right? Like, I'm gonna tell you what, like it might be hard as hell what I do sometimes, but like I've also very recently had this happen where I get on scene in an overdose and I have somebody who's purple and they're not breathing. And I get on scene and I'm like, oh, this is really bad. And I get to see that person breathing and their eyes are open before they get to an ambulance. And I know for a fact that if I had been there, that person might not be getting in the ambulance without me, you know, and me being there was a drastic good impact for them. So it's satisfying as all hell. It really is. I mean, kind of boosts you up a little bit too. You're like, I'm sorry, how do you think you can talk to me? Motherfucker, I saved a life earlier. Their truths way that you actually see at the end of the day, this is life and death shit. Bottom line. I mean, what we have going on in all of our communities. And we are seeing these spikes, which I'll say I did research panels for Johns Hopkins during the pandemic. We knew this kind of shit was getting ready to come. We tried to warn them, actually. We tried to warn the government. And we were like, yeah, we need more mental health services, right? We're getting ready to isolate people for who knows how long. We thought it was going to be a little bit shorter, a lot shorter actually than what it was. And now we have people coming out of lockdown, and some of these kids that are out here, you guys, we got to remember, however bad the lockdown fucked us up, these kids only had their routines. They only had what they knew. And they had all their socialization taken away from them, all of their friends, everything, you know, and now these kids are turned out onto the streets and hell yeah, they got a bunch of extra pent up energy. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're gonna be out there doing some extra dirty shit because they were all not allowed to do anything for so long that they're gonna be really fucking dumb when they're out of the eyes of their parents. I mean, come on. Also, how many of us actually remember being, kids and what the kind of shit that we would do to go around our parents? And I mean, can anybody who's really like past age 30, 35 right now tell me that they can look at their high school or middle school yearbook and everybody from their class that they graduated with is still alive with us?
I don't know.
Whoa.
I mean, so
Yeah, I shared a picture though. Like,
if you, I was gonna say also, if you do want to make sure that we have a couple more people, you and I could talk when I see you next about doing another one of these. And I mean, also at the very least, it kind of, I didn't have a good sketch mentally. I think personally going in, which is partially why I'm so all over the place.
well,
But
no,
I also did a
you in
whole
that.
parade today. It was community active for hours before.
That's what I'm
doing
saying.
this,
But
so.
I don't think that's bad at all, considering it's the fact that you're all over the
Mm.
place, but you touching bases all over the place.
Hold up, I can't even fucking hear you. I can't hear you, Joel.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, it's over. Mike Posner keeps coming on, and I don't know how to
see
stop
that.
it.
I see that.
And I can't hear you. I can see you talking to me, and I can see you laughing at me, and I will scream at you. Okay, don't make me. But
it's funny.
I mean, we will do this again because this will kind of give me and like other people like a base foundation, I think, right? And then we can talk in the chat a little bit more about making sure that we have more cohesiveness, right? A little bit.
Absolutely.
So I will holler at you. I'm gonna text you or call you in just a few minutes. All right.
Yeah. Just
Give me a thumbs up, Duel.
Wait, I gotta figure out. I gotta figure out the camera. Okay. Yeah, Roy, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. That was that's pretty much the gist of it. That's a small piece of what could be.
Sure, I'm open. Sure, I'm liking the vibe of it.
Yeah, and that's a constant vibe though too. And they, we like-minded too. Of course, they that's a little sis, but they came up not so great, but they made it and mastered it through it though too.
As we all did.
And that's why that's one of the main reasons I don't preach about color, this or that, because she's not doing that for herself or her color or her kind. And you know her background. She told you her background.
Yes.
And that's what I respect the most. But for her and my daughter mom to be the only white people in the church in my mom's funeral, that says a lot.
Hmm.
In Ben
Yes.
Harbor. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Honestly, though, like, yeah, I had a health scare, a medical emergency. The shit funny now, but yeah, man. I was just not getting no proper rest. My diet was shit, and just trying to go hard, go extra. Like I'm younger, I can't do that shit when I'm older.
That's gonna get you every time.
Yeah, and I know that now. But I was like, oh, stop. And she was like, no, motherfucker. She was checking my pulse, and I was like, oh shit. Had the thing that you put on your fingertip to check your blood oxygen or whatever.
You said what now?
She had the thing you put on your finger to check your blood oxygen and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, you just came prepared for okay. But that's what I'm getting into now. I'm getting into the part of actually reaching out, helping people and stuff like that. And it's not for glorification, it's actually to help people. But at the same time, say what?
This was the whole process of your movement. So now it's starting to move forward,
Yeah. But the thing is though, I feel kind of dumb for the simple fact I had the proper step to get that way, but didn't think about actually utilizing. your mic off.
You know, sometimes we have to slow down to wake up and see what's right in front of us, you know?
Yeah, and it only hit me when she was like, "You want me to come on?" I was like, "Yeah," and then I was like, "Oh shit." Then it all went through my head because there's a lot of things that we talk about not naming stuff, but she works with a lot of nonprofit things that are actually happening and stuff. Like when I say boost, when we say boost to the ground with them. And you know,
Oh, I heard her story. It sounded like boots to the ground, like she there.
yeah, literally, yeah.
Yeah, she that front line like I wish a motherfucker would.
Yeah, literally though, literally. And it's one of those people that's from the hood, but don't let anything fool you. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't look like it, but don't let nothing fool you.
No, she a white girl, Eric. That's what she is.
Yeah. Well, no, not that's a black dude. He reincarnated. He, his former life he was black. You look at him, you talk to him, you know. Her like it would take you to try to test him or whatever, then you would know. But yeah, we had stopped at the gas station or something. I'm getting back in the damn truck. Shit, cocking a Ruger and shit. I'm like, oh, what is we doing?
With that, I wish a motherfucker would.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. But yeah, man, I wish Alvin and I wish Eula would have been on here.
Yeah, I wish I would have came on too. That'd have been nice. But you know, it's the 4th of July.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying like last week, like y'all show.
I got preoccupied with something else.
Yeah. But I mean, make sure you send it out, make sure they see it and stuff.
I definitely will. We about to close this one out?
Yeah, we're gonna close it out. I gotta it's been about an hour. Ran kind of late, but it's been about an hour. I'm gonna close it out, upload it. And Lollipop, she here out of support. You know, she at work.
Okay.
She listening.
All right. As long as she does.
For sure. All right, man. It's been great. And I'm gonna text you in a second while it's uploaded.
Okay.
All right.